So hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. This is a video about my commercial vehicles, and right now I am converting the brand new, it's in reality a reissue made from Italeri of the Fiat 190.38. That was the nicknamed California or special version of the Fiat 190s, and I am backdating this using my resin kit, which you will find on my catalog and on my website. Is a minor conversion, they give you the details to make this type of modification. This is an extract that I did from my previous kit about the Fiat 170, and I saved the main grille in the front, which is the original one that you will find in the kit. This is the one that still features the badge from Iveco, that if you want to produce a 619, this is the base kit for a Fiat 619, you have to cut it away. It's not a big issue because I made one here, which I would like to show you. This is the modified grille which I already prepared, and as you can see, I simply scratched away the badge 170s, and the badge Iveco comes very easy apart because it's basically printed over this part, but it still maintains the detail of the inner grille. So to obtain this is not a big issue. This if you want to make an European truck, but if you are willing to do a South American Fiat 619, check carefully the photos, because very often they have the big logo Fiat instead of this, and the logos are slightly different from the truck of the 60s that I am reproducing here. And to use this modification, I also had the flat roof, which I call it the low roof, used by the first version of the Fiat H cabin. Remember that the H cabin proposed by Fiat was a modification they introduced in the 1970 as a kind of develop in the way to have it more comfortable and more space to be used, coming from the Chinese 6 version of the previous one, the Mustaichi truck that I already produced in resin. In resin is my 682 and 690 trucks series, the red one and the green one, and the gray one that I already did on my channel. You have plenty of videos about the trucks. And this was a modification that Fiat introduced in 1970s, when they start to include inside their group that later became in 1975 the Iveco Industrial Vehicle Corporation, featuring together Fiat Truck, Lancia Truck, Magirus Deutz, and Unique from France, and Sauer in Switzerland. They took it all together and they adopted a cab, this particular cab that was not originally made by Italian but was made by the French Unique. The Unique introduced this truck slightly before Fiat, and it was the main difference was that the French Unique, despite the big badge different from Fiat, they had for sometimes just Unique, then Fiat Unique, and then just Fiat on the front badge, but it was the only version with a reversible cab, while the Italian version didn't have the reversible cab in the European market. The access to the motor was guaranteed just by a big door that they cut in the front end of the final part of the nose of the truck, which can access you to the inner and the front part of the radiator and the motor. And all of this truck, at least in the Fiat version, never featured a V8 unit. The only trucks featuring the V8, it was the French Unique, which had the 260, the 340, and the kind of prototype 370 V8 unit. But they were quite unreliable, according to what people used to say, because they were very powerful for the time. To have 370 horsepower in the 70s was a very big target. They were arrived on the mass production trucks in the 80s, so it was something really pioneeristic for the time. And Fiat never adopted that unit, so all the Fiat trucks were featuring not the V8, which probably was the needing to have a a reversible cab to have access to the double bank of the head of the two row of cylinders, while this one were only unit in 6 cylinders. So the correct way to make this truck, including the 180, the 691, the 619 like this one, and all the series 6 coming from Fiat, they were just featuring the 6 inline units. They never had the V8. The first truck in Italy having the V8 was the Fiat 170. That was a kind of turning point, presented in 1975. I made a racing kit of that truck. Was the green one that you find on my channel, the bright green one, and it was also the first one that featured the reversible cab. To make a long story short, 5 minutes just explaining the story of these Fiat trucks, Coming back to the modification I applied to the just reissued box from Italeri, you have to recreate basically the lower part of the front end. You see this is made in white plastic card. Not so difficult in my opinion, because you just have to add a little part on the side to propose the proper curvature. They were curved and slightly going inside in this direction down, with the front grille that was positioned in this position, as you can see. So this is the correct way to do it. Then of course I let it be separated from the rest of the truck, because it's much more easy to paint this. This was painted in black with chromed cornice around and the badge, so it's much more easy to have this part separated and just apply it over when the cab is finished and complete, to give the real appeal and the real look that is needed for this part. Plus, remember that when you do this type of modification, the conversion that you basically have to do from the Italeri mold is not only for this lower part to adapt the front grille, but also to reduce the front frame from the windshield, because in the Italeri kit this part arrives, as you can see, to the end up here, because the Fiat 190 proposed by Italeri had like one of the major modifications that all the cab was becoming much more comfortable. In the Italian way, they didn't went for a brand new cab like other companies did, but they just updated what they had in the store, we used to say. So basically the front shield was enlarged, modifying the upper part of the roof. So this roof, this is in the lower version, still missing the drop line that I will add forward, but the original 190s part proposed by Italeri, it was so wide open in the front, so you can earn something like 20 to 30 centimeter in the front windshield. This is the real cab proposed by them, and it was the late version, so the version produced in the 80s of this truck, completely different. Also you see the schema of the parts on top. You still have the opening window, the opening door on the top to make a little air coming inside the cockpit, but also the nerves on the roof were different. You see, completely different, and basically much more lower. This was to increase the comfort inside, especially in the night area. This was this area here where the driver used it to rest, and another modification that you have to apply to this truck, this in the idea to make a 619, which have been one of the workhorses still used in South America. There is plenty of these trucks still active in Argentina, in Brazil, in South America, all over, because they were incredibly reliable. They were trucks that basically didn't have any electronics inside, so the truck was constantly working, constantly fully working, just mechanical, metal over metal, and the skill of the driver, as they used to say. So it is very, very nice to see them still active. There is part of them active in North Africa and in Africa in general, but many of them are mostly in just of this model 619, I think, because they were produced in Argentina, also under license after Fiat, which produced the truck until the 90s, when it was still a vehicle that can work with no problem, because they had no issues of pollution like we had it here in Europe, and we had completely to throw them away from the road. And Today they are totally disappeared, as the old Mercedes, the old Volvo, the same generation of truck have been completely thrown away for these issues they had for the pollution and the emission from the engine. But another modification that you constantly have to do for this type of trucks was that in the 50s, in the 60s, and in the 70s, I think until the mid 75, the driving side was not on the left, but it was on the right side. This reason was, many say, because it was easier to do maneuvering and overpassing other vehicle if you have the driver on this side, being so wide vehicle. So that was the main reason why in those vehicles the driving was constantly on the right side, despite the traffic solution was like it is today. So we drive on the right side with the driver on the left. I hope you understand what I mean. That's it. So you have to make this type of modification. In my racing kit there is the dash that here is featured in the 190s, not so correct because it was neither honestly in this way, but I made the double Veglia clock, and you have to cut this dash and to place the driving side on this side. It's quite easy modification because the part is quite straight and quite simple, it's not ergonomical like the Turbo Star and like the modern vehicle, so it's absolutely easy to do this type of modification. Last but not least, remember, when you go for this type of modification, you have also to cut, here is a little wrinkled, the plastic from Italeri, but it's not a big issue. You have to cut the real windows that were completely opened in this vehicle. It was just from the 190 series that they became closed by a metal plate with the X, but is a modification that is not that hard to do, just follow the line that Italeri already placed on the mold and just go engraving with a scalpel with something, and you will find your way to open both the external metal part and the inner part for the inner cockpit. So you will have to add some acetate, transparent or glass, what you prefer. It's quite easy, because the parts remain separated from the external shell of the cab, so you have all the room to make all your parts. Usually modelers just make all this part in a transparent sheet, and you have no issues about this. That's it. As I said, remember that the Italian units never featured the V8, as well as they never had the Eaton Fuller mounted on this type of truck. The Eaton Fuller arrived on the Fiat 170, so in 1975, quite different vehicle, quite different cab, but this vehicle only just used the ZF gear shifter, so it was different from the Eaton Fuller unit mounted on the V8. And that's it. Final detail, always remember that from my website is also available the Trilex wheels. There is a selection of them. There is both with the Continental tire or with the Michelin X tire, which I probably will use for this truck, and they are the Trilex, the reinforced steering, the reinforced rim that was used on this vehicle. Very characteristic, very nice, and with a wonderful pattern which we made from 3D printing, and this is a racing copy of it. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and if you're interested in this type of vehicles, just to make a little detaching from the racing cars which I used to build usually, you are welcome here. Come back soon, and see you in the next one.